To get started, can you tell us a little bit about your shirt?
Well, this is an authentic England football team shirt from probably about 20 years ago,
Oh
I
my
think.
gosh.
Yep. So I'm wearing that as we're going to talk about our World Cup stamps.
Awesome. I can't wait.
All right. So let's put up the presentation. All right. Yeah, so let's talk about World Cup on stamps. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so football or soccer? What do you call it?
Soccer.
Soccer, right. So where do we get the word soccer from? So actually, football has, association football has been around for a long time. 1863, the International Football Association Board, and then FIFA, the International Federation of Association Football, or Fédération Internationale de Football Association. I don't know how you say that in French, really. Football Association. There you go. Yeah, 1904, they took over. So they actually managed the World Cup, but the International Football Association Board is still around. They manage the rules. So for all of those of you thinking, oh, well, this is a relatively new sport, rugby football, which is what I played at school, didn't come along until 1845. Australian rules in 1859.
Okay.
And what we call football here in the US, American football didn't come along until 1869. So it's actually the most recent. Let's go to the next slide and see how we got the history of the World Cup. So this is the history of the World Cup. So it was in the Olympic Games in 1904 in London. It was added. And Uruguay won back-to-back World Cups in 24 and 28. Not World Cup, sorry, the Olympic gold in soccer. So this guy, Jules Rimet, he was the FIFA president. He liked this idea of having a football competition that was outside of the Olympics. Okay. So he pushed for that. And in fact, the first one was done in Uruguay. They were the first host in 1930, and they beat Argentina 4-2. But because it was in South America, not many people went. Mainly South Americans.
Yeah.
So not many people from Europe went. But as you can see, that stamp there, actually, if you remember the Olympic stamp presentation I gave, that was one of those from that set. So let's move to the next slide. So we didn't have any stamps for that first World Cup. This is for the second World Cup. This was in 1934 in Italy. And they went crazy and issued this huge big set of stamps. And at the time, not a lot of people know this, but Italy was actually ruling the Aegean Islands, which are now part of Greece.
Yeah.
And so they had another set that were overprinted for that. And then they had a whole bunch of colonies around North Africa, and around the Mediterranean. And of course, this was the onset of Italian fascism and Mussolini, and he wanted the Italian Empire and all that kind of good stuff, right? Also interesting, this is the first stamps, some of these, I'm not sure which ones, but I think it's the ones at the top middle, the actual showing the footballers. First stamp designed by a woman.
There you go.
So this was Liana Ferri, who was a well-known Italian artist, and she actually got to design these stamps. Italy went on to beat Czechoslovakia 2-1 in 1934. So let's move to the next set. This is Paris 1938. Only one stamp was issued globally.
Yeah.
But I thought this was a lovely set. And as you can see on your screen, the engraving for a little stamp like this, which is less than 2 inches wide in reality, I just love the way that the engravers have actually drawn this. And it's a beautiful thing, really.
Very detailed.
They don't do stamps like this anymore, not engraved anyway. Italy beat Hungary 4-2, if we're interested in the result of that.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. Okay, so fourth World Cup. Now, you notice there's a big gap. We missed 2 World Cup years.
Okay.
So that's basically it's every 4 years, right?
Yeah.
So we missed 2, World War II, of course.
Oh.
So the next World Cup after 38 was in 1950 in Brazil. British Brazil issued a nice set of stamps for those. If we just have one more click there, please. There we go. So guess what? Our friends Uruguay, was their second win. So they issued these 2 stamps to commemorate their win.
Oh, nice.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next slide. So moving on to 6th World Cup, excuse me, 1958 in Sweden. I like this set, one, because they're very simple. They're like the IKEA of stamps, which is kind of about right for Sweden, right?
Exactly.
But the other thing you'll notice here is that, in fact, Sweden, for a long time, more than any other country, issued stamps in books and in machines. So rather than as big sheets. And so if you look at the two on the left, they actually have no perforation top and bottom because they were actually sold out of machines.
Okay.
And so you put some coins in the machine and it would give you so many stamps, right? So obviously you don't need the perforations on the top and bottom.
Yeah.
The ones in the middle were actually out of a book, so they have no perforations left and right. So, you know, as a collector, of course, I want to have the pair. I don't want to have, you know, just one with no perforation on the left or whatever. So that's why I included those, just from a piece of interest. The result here, Brazil actually beat Sweden 5-2, and that was Brazil's first win.
Okay.
So that's 1950. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Now, this I put up just to show you the popularity of stamps.
This is cool.
This is, this was fun researching. So here we see the World Cups every 4 years from 1930. Obviously, no stamps there in Uruguay, and a little blip with Italy going crazy. But then it's fairly quiet. 1952 in Chile. More countries starting to take interest in commemorating it. 1966 there in the UK, absolutely crazy. People went completely crazy. Loads and loads of countries and a lot of British Commonwealth countries. They did a big omnibus set, all had the same stamp design but different country names on them, so just went crazy. And as you can see, it goes completely crazy. Get up to like Spain there, we've got like 700 stamps worldwide.
Wow.
That's a huge collection. I mean, that's a collection all by itself, right? But interestingly though, apart from the blip in South Africa, which was the first time it had been in Africa, and obviously there was a lot of interest there, you'll see that in fact, as we get nearer to today, the interest in collecting stamps is going down, the number of countries issuing stamps is going down, there's much more stuff by email these days.
Yeah,
and so,
that's true.
Stamp collecting is unfortunately, or fortunately, you know, dying out from a point of view of new stamps.
Yeah.
But obviously there's thousands and thousands of old stamps to collect, which is part of the
which
fun.
are really cool.
Interesting. When we get to the gutter, which is the current World Cup this year, you'll notice it's a very low thing. In fact, only gutter has issued stamps this year.
Really?
No other country.
Interesting.
So I don't know whether that's a political statement or that's FIFA saying only the host country can issue stamps because they're officially endorsed by FIFA.
Okay.
I don't know. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But let's go to the next slide. I know you're all out there going, but Dick, what about the World Cup stamps from the US? Well, the US being the US, of course, only issues stamps if it affects the US. It's a very parochial kind of thing. In this case, they issued stamps for the 1994 World Cup, which was held here in the US. And that was, those three stamps you'll see there were also issued separately. But this is what's called a mini sheet or a souvenir sheet. And so they're kind of fun for collectors to collect, and they have different, you know, more information about the event and that kind of thing. In that particular game final in 1994, Brazil beat Italy 3-2 after a penalty shootout, which is the worst way to win a World Cup, right? The worst way to win any football game is after a penalty shootout.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the next one. So this is one of the gutter souvenir sheets. You'll see that there's a sort of stamps in the middle of it kind of thing. It's kind of okay, you know, but they're officially endorsed by FIFA, so we'll see. They probably won't be on my collection, but whatever. But anyway, let's move on to probably the last one, which is my favourite. This is the 8th World Cup, England, 1966. I was 10 years old. I don't mind admitting it. This stamp is probably my favourite stamp. This was issued after England won the World Cup by beating West Germany 4-2 after extra time. And fantastic event, remember it?
Yeah.
It was the last time the BBC filmed a live event or televised it in black and white.
Really?
Yeah. The last one that was fully done in black and white. And also, it was the only time that a hat trick has been scored in the final, in the World Cup final.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So you saw there that the massive spike of stamps for 1966 World Cup. If you want to know how many that is, this whole album is just the 1966
Really?
World Cup. And you can see that's the winner's stamp right there.
That is so cool.
Yeah, so that was a fun set to put together. So yeah, awesome.